Top TV, Truth of the People.
Hello everyone, welcome to Politics 101 with me, Ivy Songok. Joining me today is Kennedy Kiprono, a law student at African Nazarene University. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for inviting me today.
How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. How about yourself?
I've been good so far.
That's great to hear.
So let's start off with the fertilizer subsidies that we've seen the president launching. It is worth like 3.6 billion. And the president has been very vocal about shifting subsidies from consumption to production. Is this a good move?
Yes, I think it's a good move because before we go ahead to talk about lowering food prices, what the government needs to do is to lower the cost of farm inputs like fertilizers to make it affordable for the farmers so that we increase the production.
But then again, we've seen that the climatic conditions of the country has been changing. Like in last year, for example, the North Rift region, which is known for producing maize, it has been experiencing a lot of, low rainfall. And so will the subsidies be helpful, in increasing the production of maize?
Yeah, sure. That's going to be very helpful in reducing the cost of maize and maybe the foodstuffs. But now the issue of climate, I think we need to, the Ministry of Agriculture need maybe to bring in scientists to interpret the climate, since we have the changes and like the normal time where it's always been known, maybe for example in Nandi there's a lot of rains maybe on April and May, and that's the time people have been planting. But now that the weather has changed, the climate has changed, I think maybe we need to now invest in maybe research to find out now the best time to maybe do planting now that the climate has changed.
Subsidizing production is a good move in the long term, but how about right now when we're in an economic crisis? Yes. And you find that the prices of unga are quite high for the common mwananchi. So what other proposals, or what should the government come up with, even as they seek to subsidize production, that even the common mwananchi is cushioned?
I think the most important thing to do at first is lowering the cost of, since they have already lowered the cost of fertilizers, and we hope to see maybe in future they'll even lower it more. Mm-hmm. So by so doing, it will now make it cheaper for the farmers to produce or rather to do their farming more effectively than when the fertilizers were expensive.
Okay, let's talk about NSSF. We saw recently when the president announced that Kenyans should increase their savings, that is up to 6%, yes, of their pensionable income. And we've seen that in the past people used to contribute around 200 shillings, yes. But then again people are expressing concerns because they don't trust the NSSF, because last year, on the year ending June, we saw that the NSSF had 223 million shillings, yes. But then 103 million shillings were accounted for. Hence 120 million were not accountable for. So will the people be able to trust this, directive even as it comes?
In my opinion, and what I think we need to do is to carry out serious audits on NSSF so that we can have people we are holding accountable for the loss of such a huge amount of funds, because it's now creating mistrust between NSSF and the Kenyan workers. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So what you're trying to say is that it starts at the management, that something should be done.
Management, something should be done. That's why I said we need to carry out maybe serious audits at some periods of time.
But at the end of these audits, you see the Auditor General coming and then saying, we can't account for 120 million. So what are these ways in which you can seal the loophole so that we don't have the money, disappearing? Because NSSF is a liquid organization.
I think what we need to do is that, as I earlier said, we need to carry out serious audits so that we can have people we are holding liable. And what we also need to do is to to actually make it painful, as in punishing those people maybe who have been listed as suspects of maybe misappropriating the money. So we need to make it more painful, because when we do that, in future people will fear committing such an offense, or rather misappropriating the money.
And maybe in the same way, you can also strengthen institutions such as EACC.
Yes, yes. And for your info, the court has today in the morning, I can say maybe the court is trying to do away with that money. The president was earlier saying that we should maybe increase that money from 200 to maybe 2,000 Kenya shillings. But now the court has said that the workers have no obligation to pay that money in the first place. So we don't know how this is going to end. But what we really hope is the accountability in future of that money, and maybe increase the idea of increasing that money in the first place from 200 shillings to 2,000 shillings was a very good idea, because it will amount to a lot of money once someone has retired.
Let's talk about SRC, the Salaries Remuneration Commission. They've been seeking to scrap off sitting allowances for MPs and only retaining the allowances for the sitting committees. So, and we've seen that there's been an outburst by the members of parliament claiming that it is unconstitutional and it is their right, so that they can be able to, go on with legislation.
Okay.
Yes. So, is this something that we should do away with because of the economic burden, that is on Kenyans?
Yes, in my opinion, we should do away with that money so that we can generate more money to be used to fund maybe different projects of the government, and yes.
But there's something we call motivation. For example, some of the MPs who are in the 13th parliament,
yes,
they have been in the 12th and the others. So once you find that your sitting allowances have been scrapped or reduced, doesn't this demotivate you in your work in legislation?
In my opinion, I think the salaries that they're being paid is already enough to cater for maybe their expenses. And why should we use the taxpayers' money to pay someone to sit in the parliament to maybe represent me and do the legislation? Why should we pay someone to go and attend a parliamentary session?
But we saw in 2017 when the MPs went to the High Court, and we saw that when SRC was seeking to remove their allowances, and we saw that the High Court overturned that, and they were able to retain their allowances. So in case they go back to court this time,
yes,
we can already see that their salaries or their allowances may be retained.
Yeah, they may have to go to court since they have a right to maybe seek redress. But at the end of the day, before that, we already have a ruling from the Supreme Court.
Okay. So you brought out CDF, and maybe you can talk about it. We saw the CJ, Martha Koome, talking about it, and she declared CDF unconstitutional. And so, there should be a clear line on what the county government and the national government can do. And so the MPs should stick to legislation. Is this a good move?
I think it's a very good move, because earlier on we've witnessed the CDF money being misappropriated by the members of parliament, and this money, to say the least, has been prone to looting, and I think it's a good move to. And what that basically means is that the CDF have not been abolished, but what the court said is that the member of parliament will not be the one managing this money. It has now been transferred to the county government and the national government.
But people are arguing that CDF has been able to do a lot in terms of development, building of schools, and even paying of school fees. But you find the county funds, the funds that come from the counties, they have not been sufficient, or rather they don't even, reach those people at the grassroots.
That's a very valid point, in that the money was always very helpful. Students who may have been needy were able to access the money. But the move by the High Court to abolish, I think what was abolished in the first place is the CDF Act of 2015 and not the money itself. But that means the management of the money has now been transferred from the constituency to the county government and maybe the national government. So I think there is only change in the management of the money, but the way we are going to use the money, I think, remains the same.
But some of the people, you know, have a feeling that MPs, you know, they come from the constituencies, and so they are on the ground. But in the counties, this is a whole big area, and therefore some people may not be able to get these funds.
I think maybe what we need to do is to maybe improve on the way things used to be done before, in the way the money is being subdivided and so forth, the allocation of the money.
Okay.
Yes.
So there you have it, guys. Thank you for joining me. So we have come to the end of our show. Remember to leave your feedback and we'll get back to you. Ciao.